Okay, so now we're going to work on our second example. First question, is everything inside of the absolute value symbols on the left? In this case, yes, it is. Okay, and then on the right, is this a non-negative number? Yes, it is. Therefore, we may proceed. All right, so the first step is write down everything you see in here exactly the way you see it. X plus 9. And then we're going to go ahead and finish it up. Is less than 1. Now, first rule of inequalities is you treat them like an equation. How do I get the x by itself? Well, if x plus 9 equals 1, then I would take 9 away from both sides. Of course, 9 minus 9 is 0. And 1 minus 9, let's see, 9 minus 1 is 8. So 1 minus 9 is negative 8. All right, so I've got this part done. I've got x something some number. All right, now, here's the trick. I need to take the opposite of everything in here. And here's an easy way to do this. Write it down exactly how you see it, x plus 9. But then go ahead and just put that in parentheses. It doesn't change what it is. It's going to make it easier for me to take the opposite of everything in here. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a minus out front. A minus out front. And what that minus tells me to do is take the opposite of everything in here. What's the opposite of x? It's negative x. What is the opposite of 9? It is negative 9. Okay, now just go ahead and finish this up with that minus or less than 1 over here and less than 1 over here. All right, again, treat it like an equation. Negative x minus 9 equals 1. Okay, how do I get the negative x by itself? Well, this time I would add 9 to both sides. Okay, so negative 9 plus 9 is going to be 0. And what is 1 plus 9? 1 plus 9 is going to be 10. All right. But again, I have the same problem I had before. I have negative x. How do I get the x by itself? Well, I know that there's a negative 1 in front of it, right? Just like before, there is a negative 1 in front of it, which means that I divide both sides by negative 1. Okay, ding, 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 ding. What just happened? I just divided by a negative number, which means I have to flip the inequality. Flip the inequality. All right, moving on. I know those cancels. That's why I did it. And that gives me an x. And if I divide one term by negative 1, I have to divide the other term by negative 1. And 10 divided by negative 1 is negative 10. Okay. Now, I have x something some number. So I ask myself the same question I did before. Can you be less than negative 8 and greater than negative 10? That means can you be to the left of negative 8 on the number line and to the right of negative 10 on the number line? Look at a number line. You'll see negative 9s there. So yes, you can. This means this is an and. And if you are an and, that means that both of your inequalities point to the left. Put the x in the middle. Which one's smaller, negative 8 or negative 10? These are negative numbers. Negative 10 is smaller. And then there's negative 8. And there is your answer to that one. Okay. All right. Let's try the next one. Okay, now on this one, first question I ask myself, is everything in, oh wait, what's going on over here? I can't be negative distance from anything. But wait, I did not ask myself the first question. What was the first question? The first question is everything inside of these absolute value symbols? There's not. So I can't even ask this question yet. First, I have to deal with this. And the way you do this, I always told you that you treat an inequality like an equation in order to solve it. The thing with the absolute values is you treat them like a variable. They're not a variable, but you treat them like that. So I need to get this absolute value of x by itself on the left before I can even ask that next question. So if I think of this as one big variable, regardless of what's in here, what's going on between the negative 5 and this thing right here? What's going on right here? That is multiplication. Why? Because this is a grouping symbol. You have a number or a letter next to a grouping symbol. That's multiplication. So this actually reads negative 5 times the absolute value of x. So how do I get the absolute value of x by itself? I would divide out the negative 5. Ding, 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 ding. Oh, just divided by a negative number, right? I have to flip this inequality. All right, don't forget to do that. All right, now, these cancel. And now I have the absolute value of x by itself on the left. But if I divide one term by -5, I have to divide all the terms by -5. -5 divided by -5, anything divided by itself is 1. Okay, now we're dealing with something just like on that absolute value of x is greater than 3. Write it down exactly as you see it over here. Finish it up. That's one part of it. Write it down exactly as you see it over here, but you take the opposite of everything here. What's the opposite of x? It's -x. Okay? And then go ahead and finish it up. Now I'm going to show you a shortcut. You might have noticed every time if it's just -x on the left, I'm going to divide it by -1 every time. But the same thing is going to happen every time. Every time that inequality is going to flip. Every time it's going to flip. And every time it's going to leave the x by itself, and that minus is going to jump over here to the other side. So this goes from 1 to -1. That's just a shortcut. You're welcome to use it. You don't have to. But if a teacher or professor asks you in the future, what did you do? You need to be able to tell them, I divided both sides by -1, and since I divided by a negative number, and this is an inequality, I flipped the inequality. Okay, so now I have it where I want it. I have x something some number, x something some number. I have to ask myself, can you be smaller than 1, bigger than -1? Is there a number to the left of 1 and to the right of -1 on the number line? Sure, 0 pops to mind. So that means, yes, you can be both. It's an and, which means both of the inequalities point to the left. X goes in the middle. Which one's smaller? Well, the -1 is smaller. This says x is greater than -1, so I put a -1 there. It says right here too, x is greater than -1. And over here I have x is less than 1. So there is our next example.